Welcome to another episode of Just BeCOS Live. I'm Chris Nicolason, and today I am honored to be joined by Aaron Griffith of the Rocky Mountain Vibes. Aaron, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks, Christopher. Thanks for having me, and hello to everybody out there watching the show.
Absolutely. So today, first, the way I usually like to start is we want to find a little bit about you, and then we're going to find out, we're going to talk baseball a little bit after that. But I want to hear your journey and how you got to where you are today. So
Yeah,
kind of walk us through where you're from and how you got here.
yeah. So I'm a little bit of an interesting story, Chris. I'm born and raised in Denver, Thornton, which is about 30 minutes north, give or take, of Denver. So I'm one of the few Colorado natives left here in and around. But my whole life, I've been very closely connected to baseball, whether it's going to Rockies games as a kid, whether it's playing. I played all through high school and had a couple college offers, but decided not to go that route. But I always knew that baseball was important to me and that I wanted to be in it. And so when I went to college, that was a big factor for me in finding somewhere that I could work in sports and still be involved in sports, even though I wasn't going to play anymore.
Right.
So I landed at UCCS, which, they have one of the best, if not the best, sport management programs in the country. And it was, far enough away from home that I could get away, but also close enough that if I needed to come home, I could. And so it was a really nice, perfect fit for me. So I graduated there in May of 21 and with a degree in business, emphasis in sport management. I've got some sport comm experience in there too. I have a minor in that. But during my time in college, I had a job lined up with the Rockies. I was going to go do marketing for them, kind of like their promo team, all those games on the field, stuff like that, be involved there. Because I did that at Air Force for a little while. And about a week before I was supposed to leave and go up there, they called me and they pulled out. They said they hired somebody else, and all of a sudden, panic kind of came in. And so I landed here. I was an intern, last minute hire. It worked out really well. And I did tickets and merch. So I don't know why those two departments were linked together. I still can't tell you why, but they just were. And it worked out because I was able to kind of see the whole operation from one seat. And that's really unique and different, I think, from an intern especially, right?
Yeah.
So, I take this internship. It's March. We have opening day in June. And it's, boots to the ground and moving. And about 3 weeks in, my boss quits. My boss up and leaves. And we had to usher in a different, ticket and merch guy. And it was always kind of known that he was going to leave. He had bigger aspirations to go do Olympic stuff. And so he was going to leave no matter what. And so I positioned myself, or tried to get his job when he left. And I did end up getting that job. So I had a full-time job my sophomore year of college, junior year of college.
Yeah.
And so I always tell people I kind of got bailed out by COVID because I don't know how I would have done both.
Right.
But, COVID comes around, our season gets canceled, and luckily was able to stay on through that with the team. And in April of last year, right before opening day, our GM left. And so, I'm like, what the heck is going on with this place? This is twice now that in April we've had, somebody leave. But luckily that was another one where it was like a blessing in disguise because we brought in a gentleman by the name of Chris Jones, who's our team president now. He manages the team here and in Lynchburg, Virginia. So he's got tons of experience. He was in Sugar Land for a long time, Lake Elsinore, a bunch of different teams. So that's what's going on now. And then after the 21 season, we had a big front office shakeup. Chris decided to move in different directions. And, luckily I got slotted into this AGM role, which is where I am now. So when Chris is gone in Virginia, it's me, as kind of the lead guy here. And that's where we're headed into opening day for this year.
Perfect. Okay. So we're going to touch on a couple things you mentioned. So you mentioned too that you've played baseball. Growing up and stuff like that. So let's talk for a minute about what positions did you play?
Yeah.
and potential offers, things like that. So obviously you were doing pretty well at what position you were playing. So
Yeah.
where were you at on the field?
Yeah. I was a first base, third base, and pitcher.
Okay.
Pitching is where I got most of my interest. Pitching is a premium in college baseball
Yeah.
specifically. But, my sophomore year of high school, I led all of our um, district in like every major hitting category. So I got vaulted right up into varsity pretty quickly there. And then, I started getting some interest from like Metro and
Yeah.
UCCS, I think even, and a few other, local schools. We had ties to schools in Nebraska and stuff like that. But I had to give it up because I had, my dad got sick. My dad got really sick when I was in high school. And so I had to, be there for my family. And, by the time I was able to come back and be ready, it was too long and I lost a lot of it. And I didn't have the love for the game anymore that I had, before. And so, hung up the cleats, I guess, as they say. So there's plenty of stories out there about, I tore my ACL or, I had Tommy John, whatever. I decided that at that time, that wasn't where I wanted to invest my time. And, I'd say it worked out, but
Yeah.
it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah. No, it actually reminds me of when so Elena Deladon, I remember watching this story on her when she was drafted or like picked up by UConn.
Hmm.
Play at UConn, ended up leaving that to go be with her family or be closer. And I think she ended up playing for Delaware or something like that, or a smaller school for a while.
Yeah.
And so I think you definitely make those sacrifices for your family.
Yeah.
And it's the right thing to do. It's the path, and that's great. So then, as somebody too in business myself, let's talk about it. You move from the merchant ticketing area
Hmm.
now to basically almost even as an AGM, but also quasi acting GM at times too
Yeah.
when Chris is out.
Yeah.
So talk to me about like what all kind of what that role encompasses, because that's got to be a pretty large role, um,
Right.
with a lot of different moving parts. So kind of what does it encompass, and what kind of people are you relying on, underneath you to help everything function?
Yeah. I think the biggest point there is there's a common misconception about what minor league baseball GMs do,
Uh,
because I think it's a very, and rightfully so. There's a very typical mindset of, we're out there building the team and we're signing players and we're, handing out the millions of dollars to
yeah,
these players. And that's not what we do.
right,
Minor league baseball is focused solely on the business. We're focused on the facility and, ticket revenue and, all that money that comes in. That's my job, is to make sure that every single department is capitalizing on the opportunity and maximizing all the revenue that they possibly can.
right,
Um, so, this role in particular, I rely very heavily on food and beverage, my food and beverage director. Concessions are a huge, huge element to how we stay afloat, right? We call it the four-headed monster. There's four
right.
things that
Okay,
we rely on. So food and beverage is the first one. Ticket sales are number two. That's a pretty, easy one to decipher. Third one is sponsorship. So corporate
right,
partners, your USAAs of the world. UC Health obviously is our big ticket naming rights partner. So that bucket is also fairly large. And then merch sales, merchandise.
nice,
So, you know, yes, I started in tickets and merch. And I always tell people, if you can make money, there's a spot for you, right? And so I was lucky enough to be in two of the most, money making departments here.
right,
And with that, when you are bringing in revenue, you get to see a lot, you get to be involved in a lot. And so as I was here, I just picked up on a lot of things that a typical intern or someone typically in that position wouldn't see. And I will say too that during COVID we didn't play, but it allowed all of us that are here still to do that. We had to. We didn't have a choice but to learn everything else because we were short staffed. We didn't have the budget anymore,
right,
and so we were fighting to stay alive basically. And so, during that year, I learned a lot about the facility. I learned a lot about grounds. I learned a lot about food and beverage and stuff like that. And so I was able to encapsulate all of that and turn that into what I have today. So,
interesting. I have a thing on grounds in just a minute for you that I want to touch on, which is interesting. But I want to talk to you too, because you had mentioned the kind of the flow, the fluctuation that you guys had for the whenever you were first coming on, and kind of the changes that kept happening. And I
Yeah.
know it's always important within business to try to get a strong foundation and some
Hmm.
stability. And
Hmm.
so as you're, working with these big four areas, can you talk about kind of as you and Chris have come on, how important it is to kind of have that stability for everybody else kind of underneath you guys?
Yeah, it's critical. It's very critical. And last year internally, we struggled a lot because we didn't have that solidarity up top to kind of trickle down, like you were
Yeah.
mentioning. So that's a lot of what happened in this off season is solidifying what we were going to do from a
Right.
management perspective. And since then, we've been rolling. We are
Nice.
way ahead of pace in terms of sales where we used to be. We're really good, and we're a unique situation in that obviously I'm 23. We have my director of sales who's just as, if not more important than I am. He's 25. We have a groups guy who's 24. We have a guy running our books who's 24. Like, we're very, very young. And
Right.
so it's this weird model like that companies don't usually follow.
Right.
So it's a really unique and interesting situation where a lot of us are very young, we're very capable, very driven and dedicated. And I think to your prior point of having that stability, that helped
Yeah.
because a lot of us have come together, as one. My director of sales, Jake, he was an intern with me the same year.
Oh, nice.
And, since we've brought on these other staff members who are, friends or previous colleagues or whatever that we
Yeah.
know are capable too. And it's just kind of created this trickle effect of all of a sudden everybody's under 26, 27, and it's, so different from the mold.
Yeah.
So,
But you've got this great thing now where all of you guys are kind of, I always say, hey, we're on the ship and we're all rowing in the same direction.
oh yeah,
And it's one of those things where you guys, I would guess you guys are seeing it going, we can do something great, but have some fun while we're doing it.
yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and that you use the word too that I love. And I mean, you guys are at an age too where that drive, it's just there, and you can actually just even listening to you talk, like you can feel it just coming out in the way you talk. So it's
Yeah,
good to hear because you like I know a bunch of older attorneys who you can tell like the job and life's just beating them down a bit, and I'm sure some kind of the standard mold, and but kind of having that exuberance and that excitement to be able to get into it and go, man, we're going to do this, and we're going to do something different. It can be a lot of fun.
yeah, it's really fun, man. And minor league baseball is no easy task. It's 9 a.m. to midnight during the season, and it's crazy, stupid long hours. But we always joke we're all young enough to take it,
Yeah.
right? We're not 50 years old and
Right.
have these family ties and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And that's what we're all working towards, which is cool because we know we can do it now, and it'll eventually pay off for us.
That's cool. Well, I want to talk for a minute. The reason I mentioned grounds, I was just in Atlanta for a conference, and we happened to get as part of our like kind of award for being down there was a tour of Brave Stadium, so Truist Park.
Mm-hmm.
And we had this one section where we were able to actually watch the groundsmen. And I don't know if you can like it. It was the most like oddly meticulous thing because they were prepping for opening day.
Yep.
It's fascinating, and I have a neighbor that I watch every year too, kind of get his lawn together almost the same way.
Yeah.
But it's just a quick talking point, but I
Out
found
there with scissors, I'm sure, right?
yes,
Yeah.
I found the grounds to be really interesting.
Yeah. It is one of the most interesting worlds that I've ever been introduced to because to your point, it's like there's a mindset, and every groundskeeper that I've ever run into is the same exact way where you have to be that meticulous because if you're not, then, one blade of grass that's yellow can turn into suddenly a 5x5 patch, and
Yeah.
suddenly that grows into your whole outfield, right? So, like, seriously, every blade of grass is so critically important, and I've never ever seen anything like it.
Right.
When I played, we took a trip to Phoenix, and I was just telling this story the other day. But we played at the Cubs spring training facility in Mesa,
Yep.
and I think they had moved into their new one by then. So this was like the old one, and the field was like this tiny grass. It was like a golf course almost. Yeah. And imagine all these high school freshmen just walking onto this field and being like, "Oh my goodness, this is crazy." And, we get this big speech from the groundskeeper, no spitting seeds out there. And, we prefer, non-metal cleats and all this, that, and the other. And I kid you not, you can't even make it up. First play of the game, kid in left field dives, takes a chunk of grass out about this big. And you just see the facility guy is not even off the field yet. And he's just sitting there shaking his head. So it's like everybody's like that. Everybody's like that. It's hard here because of the weather, but it makes it that much more important.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, it actually reminds me of that sign that you see on the golf course, which is like repair your divots.
Yep.
You just gotta fix it. I'm actually right behind Pine Creek right here. And
Very
we're
cool.
just starting to see it turn green again finally. So I know what you're saying about the grass and things like that. So it is it's definitely it's a hard, meticulous job, and I think you do have to have a certain personality to be the one out there doing that.
Definitely. And it's crazy too, because we have a deal with King's Deer. So they host us and our players all season, but obviously they're up in Monument. And so even 30 minutes north, it's such a different climate and different area. They're only a few hundred feet above us in altitude, but they weren't able to open the golf course until, mid-April, like a week ago.
Right.
And so, just watching them compared to us even is wild, because they're even farther behind in terms of warm weather and stuff.
Cool. Well, I want to talk next too, because you mentioned the big four areas, and I want to talk next about food and beverage. And one of my favorite things to do whenever I go to the park is always to, there's nothing, it makes part of the experience, nothing like, ballpark food.
Yeah.
So can you talk about what are some of kind of the staples that people should be looking out for whenever they come out to the park? Do you have a favorite out there? Because for me, whenever I go to a Rockies game, I got the certain extreme hot dog that I want to get or what have you. So do you guys have anything that you're when you come out, you got to try this thing?
Yeah. So my personal favorite are the Vibe fries. They are waffle fries that on their own would be good enough.
Yeah.
But we load them with green chili, sour cream, nacho cheese, all the good stuff. And I really have to restrain having those every day.
Nice.
But, concessions is interesting because our model is we want to be family entertainment.
Yep.
Really. And to be fair, we don't really care about the baseball on the field so much. We want, Chris, you and your wife and your family to come and enjoy yourselves more so than, enjoy or watch a closely competitive baseball game.
Right.
And so because of that, we try to competitively price all of our food and beverage options so that it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg to, feed a family of four, right? We have a lot of specials that we'll run. Thursdays are beer days, right? So we get a pretty rowdy crowd for $2 beers those days. And Wednesdays are $1 hot dogs, right? So we do a lot of those kind of promotional things to help with that too. And we have options for any wallet size, for any taste, anything that you want. And each stand has its own kind of theme. So we have a Mexican food stand, and we have your traditional ballpark food. And then we have a healthy food stand, right? So we have different options for everybody. And we really pride ourselves on that.
Perfect. And then you mentioned too, the thing where you want it to be family friendly. You want people to be able to come out and have a good time. So let's talk for a minute too. One of my favorite things about going to the park is you see they have certain theme nights or things like that.
Yeah.
So, and I always know too that unlike the pros have some.
Yeah.
It's usually a bobblehead day or something like that. Can you talk to me? But the minors usually are crazy different.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about some of your guys' theme nights that you have that can be fun for the family.
Yeah, so it's good timing. Our official promo schedule just released yesterday.
Nice.
So for everybody out there who wants to know, that can be found on our website, social media, all that good stuff.
Perfect.
But kind of the highlights, opening day is a big one for us. That's Monday, May 23rd. That one we don't have to do a whole lot. It's just opening day. It's got that energy on its own. But to your point, we kind of rely on those because we don't have the Chris Bryant's of the world to draw fans. So we have to get super creative in how we market ourselves as the facility and the team. And so this year we have a really, really good lineup. We've got your traditional Marvel night, superhero night. Nice. We are doing Christmas in July, which we're trying to focus and do a nonprofit, emphasis that day. We've got Colorado Proud Day at the end of the year. We've got Broncos Night that we had last year as well that did really well.
Nice.
And those are all on Saturdays because we know that families are more willing and able to come out on Saturdays. And so it makes a lot of sense to try and give them an experience on those days that they'll enjoy.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, it was one thing where I had a couple weeks ago, I had the director of the Pikes Peak Philharmonic on actually, and he was talking about how they're actually doing a Marvel event in their next round later this year.
Yeah, very cool.
They're going to show Black Panther and actually play the score live.
Oh, that's awesome.
So a cool family type event. But I think anytime you can get the Marvel add in, it's a nice little touch right there too.
Yeah, people love it, and we were supposed to have that during COVID year.
Yeah.
And obviously we didn't play, so we couldn't do it the way we wanted. But towards the end of the summer, when the city kind of relaxed some of the policies and such, we did a similar concept. We showed Captain America, and we had bobbleheads already ordered to give away that day, and so we gave them away to fans as they showed up there. So
that's great.
Yeah, that's a pretty common one for us that does really, really well.
Nice, awesome. So then let's talk for a minute too about so you talked about kind of getting people in, but then people come in, they got the players to watch. So let's talk, because you had mentioned to me kind of the affiliation that you guys currently have, which is a little unique, I think. And I literally have never heard of this. And so talk about the affiliation that the Vibes have right now.
Yeah. So to my knowledge, it is the only deal of its kind. But I have heard that it's opened some doors, and I'll touch on that here in a second. Last year when Chris Jones came in, our team president, he really wanted to spread baseball across the world, not just the country. And we found a very unique opportunity to do that with a team in Mexico. So Mexico has I believe it directly translates to Mexican Baseball League, but it's like their MLB basically. Okay. And on our parent club's team, we have Bartolo Colon and Josh Reddick, and Pablo Sandoval is down there right now. And so there are significant names playing down there. Yeah. And so we signed an agreement to basically host all of their prospects for the season last year because it gives them exposure, to get scouted by MLB scouts. It allowed us some financial flexibility to go a little more all out on these promo nights and, concessions and stuff like that. But third, it was the first of its kind where we felt that there was such an interesting opportunity to help develop baseball across the world, and not just in Colorado Springs, not just in Colorado, not just in the United States, but, suddenly we're crossing the border. And so it was a really, really unique thing. And, we weren't that good on the field, I'll be the first to admit, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter to us because we were doing something that was so different and so groundbreaking. And, I mentioned opening doors. This has given other independent teams an avenue to go to, say, Australia or Japan or, these other big time pro leagues that they don't have the resources that MLB does. And so we can provide a facility, we can provide, prospect development for them. And so there have been a lot of conversations in other leagues and other teams, with these other big time organizations that's really cool to watch and see.
Wow. That is awesome. So you mentioned, there's two things I want to touch on then. One is, you're serious that Bartolo Colon is still playing?
I'm serious.
It's crazy because I remember watching him with the Indians, whenever they were the Indians, way back in the day. But it's I feel like he's got to be at least in his mid-50s by this point.
He's close. I think he's like 48 or something like that.
Wow, that's crazy. It's so interesting. So then, talk to me too for a minute, with the players. How does it? Because whenever I was also talking to the director from the Philharmonic, he talked about kind of their day in and day out life. He's like, this isn't a full-time job for them. They've also got to do other things like tutor or what have you. Yeah. What does the daily life look like for the players, in an independent baseball league?
Yeah. So, we talked about this before we got on to, there's two separate models basically. And ours is just different because we have this deal, right? Mm-hmm. So the typical model, everybody else in our league, the other 9 teams, they are responsible for going out and signing all their players. They're responsible for scouting. They're responsible for payroll.
Come back. Whoops. There we
And then us, we're, given these players basically. And
go. Mhm.
so their, kind of daily routine is, we're a bus league first and foremost. So
Okay.
anytime they go on the road, they're traveling via bus. I think the farthest we go this year is Idaho. Uh,
Okay.
but they stay at a team hotel and or with a host family.
Okay.
We've got families in the community that have, very graciously given up a room for the summer to
Yeah.
host a player or two. And so they stay there. They come to the facility about, noon, 1 o'clock for a 6:30 game. They're practicing all day. They're taking BP. They're doing fielding drills, this, that, and the other. Game starts, they play, and they go back home and do it all over again the next day.
Yeah. That's interesting because it actually reminds me. There's a great scene in the movie Field of Dreams where they talk about when they meet up with Moonlight Graham and they talk about what it was like being like playing in the minors.
Yeah.
How, the idea of staying in 2022, staying with a host family. You know what I mean? There is a passion for the game that you have to have in order to, because we have this idea of the big lights, right? We're going to be the next, Harper, Trout, Soto, whoever.
Right. Right.
But the reality is they're cutting their teeth and they're really out there just kind of, it really actually still kind of has that feel that they even talked about in the movie a little bit.
Yeah, and being independent, we definitely see that nitty gritty.
Yeah.
You have to want to do it. That's 100% true. Luckily, part of the benefit as to minor league baseball retracting, Major League Baseball has come in and taken a big step in managing minor league clubs now. But
Yeah.
a benefit to that is that now minor league clubs have direct access to major league funds.
Right.
And so some things that they're doing are, major league clubs have to pay for transportation. And so, these guys are being able to fly now. And sometimes they get nicer buses and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
but the big one that they just passed is major league clubs are responsible for minor league housing now.
Oh, wow.
And so, Chris, our team president, he also manages the team in Lynchburg, who is affiliated, unlike us. And so he talks about that all the time. Cleveland's paying for apartments and they're paying for buses and they're paying for food and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It probably should have been that way, but it never was. And so, people kind of look down on the fact that we're independent now and that Major League Baseball has changed. And don't get me wrong, MLB definitely still has some, kinks to iron out.
Sure.
They're doing also a lot of really positive things that
Yeah.
I think should not go by the wayside.
So then let me ask you this too. Is it, because I always hear too about the minors doing things, kind of as like the tryout for the majors, right? So
Mhm.
whether it's the pitch clock or other things, do you guys do any of that? Have you guys like implemented any certain like changes strategically as you analyze it each season, things like that?
Sure, we definitely do. And the Pioneer League is very, very involved in that. We want to be, for lack of a better term, pioneers
Yeah.
in the game of baseball. And so this year we didn't see too many changes, but last year, our first independent year, we implemented the home run derby rule, is what I call it. It's called it's either shootout or knockout round or something like that. But we took away extra innings.
Okay.
So if the game is tied in the ninth, each team designates one guy, and it's like a 10-pitch home run derby. Whoever hits the most home runs wins. Like you win the game. And all of us were like, heck yeah, this is awesome. Like we should be doing this, a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
And it just so happened that our first series, it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. On that Sunday, we were tied in the ninth. And the place just went bananas. We won that game on a derby. He just tucked one into the left field foul pole and won that game. And just the buzz and excitement that we got from that, like Barstool picked it up and all these major media outlets loved it.
Oh.
And so, whether you want to give us credit for that or not, I think Major League Baseball is playing with that idea. Yeah. And to your point, yes, we are trying things like that. And as we go along as a league, that's going to be critically important to us because it gives us, eyeballs. Basically.
Yeah, it's fun. Like, how fun is that? Oh man. Okay, so Aaron, we're at about 30 minutes, so I do want to respect your time. I could keep talking to you for a while.
Yeah, fair.
And then, so we'll close out on these last couple. So then, as somebody now that's in more of this managerial role, and you're not a player anymore,
Yeah.
Do you still have a love for the game? And if you do, talk about who your favorite pro team is, and let's go from there.
Yeah, I do. My whole life is baseball, and my girlfriend will tell you that that's my worst trait, is that all I do is baseball.
There you go.
I still love it, and especially in minor league baseball, you have to, because of those long hours we talked about and stuff.
Yeah.
So I do love it. Unfortunately, I am a Rockies fan, and we were kind of going back and forth on that. I've witnessed one good year in my whole life, and it's just so funny because I can vividly recount, the 2007 World Series, and I was, 8 years old at that time. But it's still such a strong memory, and so hopefully we'll get there sooner rather than later. But we will see.
Just baby steps, man. It's an exercise in patience sometimes, ain't it?
Yeah, it's testing for sure.
And as somebody then too that's had definitely, that's been a fan of a team where players have come and gone. I always have friends ask me this because I'm a Nationals fan. They're like, are you a fan of the player or are you a fan of the team? And so where are you at with that?
Yeah, it's changed as I've gotten older. When I was a kid, it was the player all the time. Like Tula was my guy, Todd Helton, all those guys were like idols to me.
Yep.
And as I've gotten older, and especially since I started working in baseball, I've noticed that my philosophy has changed in that I can't help but start looking at the business more so than, the product on the field. And the Rockies are a particularly interesting one to look at, ironically enough.
Yeah.
But I've definitely shifted my focus. I support the Rockies more so than, individual players. And there are definitely ones that still break my heart. We were talking about Trevor Story earlier. That one hurt me quite a bit, but like Arenado didn't. I think that was a relatively smart business move at the time. And, that obviously got a lot of backlash. But anyway, I look at the business more, and some players I like for that reason, and some players I don't. And so it's more so a Rockies support than anything else.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Because I feel the same way about Scherzer, where it's one of those things where it just was heartbreaking. And but we'll have a conversation offline if you ever think that Soto should be worth $500 million or not. But, it's just,
I'm sure that's one we could go for a long time.
I know, right? Especially from the business side, it'd be really interesting.
Definitely.
But anyway, Aaron, I appreciate you coming on today, and definitely look forward to reaching out and chatting with you too about sponsorship opportunities and things like that. So
anything you need, Chris, and anybody in the audience too, feel free to reach out. Info@vibesbaseball is your best option there. You can shoot us an email, and that'll get routed to the right place. Social media is good too. Anything is @vibesbaseball. So if you want to give us a follow and a shout there, we'll like that. But all of our big releases and such are on social media. Precursor for tomorrow. Tomorrow's a huge day for us. Single game tickets go on sale tomorrow. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. But shoot us a note anytime, and we're happy to help.
Perfect. Thanks for coming on, Aaron.
All right, Chris. Thanks for having me, and take care.